I would just like to advise you this meeting was scheduled to start at 5:30, but we're waiting on a board member to show up so that we can conduct the meeting. So as soon as he shows up, we can proceed. It's now, it's now 5:35 on February the 15th, which is the advertised time and date for this meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to take place. So I will now call the meeting to order. I would first of all like to introduce the staff. The lady sitting furthest from me is Julia Crane, Planning Director. Next to Julia on her right is Joella Thomas, a planning technician, and the gentleman sitting at the table in front of the computers keeping track of what's said tonight is Michael Parker. I would now like to introduce the members of the board. On my far right is Brian Higgins. Next to Brian is Tyler Schaefer, Stephen Coe. On my far left is Garrett Craig. Next to Garrett is Shannon Adams. She's a brand new member of the board, and I'd like to welcome her to the board. And then on my immediate left is John Reese. My name is Dave Wing, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. So the first matter that we have on our agenda, I believe, is the conditional use permit for Maverick. Is a representative from Maverick present? You, sir? Okay, thank you. And we've had this particular matter before us. Back in December, we had a meeting, and pursuant to the conditions with respect to conditional use permits, the board had up to 60 days to make its decision. Between the December meeting and now, Maverick has submitted additional information related to lighting primarily, but also noise. And since that was submitted after the meeting, the Silverboat Drive-In owners and representatives have been given the opportunity to respond to that. So with regard to tonight's meeting, our concerns are mostly going to be, in fact, I'd like people to combine themselves to comments regarding lighting and noise. So with that in mind, see if the board has any information for us or a presentation.
Chairman Wing, we have a presentation this evening on conditional use permit application 23-3, Maverick Convenience Store and Gas Station. That is the other one. This screens? And then that one will be after. Thank you. Okay. So this presentation is a continuation of conditional use permit application 23-3 Maverick Convenience Store and Gas Station. The proposal is an application by Ronning Development, LLC, to construct a Maverick convenience store with fuel sales at the southwest corner of Interstate 15 and German Gulch Road. Convenience stores with fuel sales are considered a conditional use in the RM2 zoning district. The proposed convenience store with fuel sales is a service station, not a truck stop. No truck shall be parked on the premises except the actual refueling operations. The Planning Department analyzed conditional use permit application for the proposed development according to the 20 review criteria for a conditional use, which include the location, character, and natural features of a property, the location, character, and design of adjacent buildings, substantial changes that have occurred to the surrounding land uses since the original adoption of the ordinance codified in this title, proposed fencing, screening, and landscaping, proposed vegetation, topography, and natural drainage, proposed vehicular access, circulation, and parking, including that relating to bicycles and other unpowered vehicles, and provisions for handicapped persons, proposed pedestrian circulation, including provisions for handicapped persons, proposed signs and lighting, all potential nuisances, public safety and health, the availability of public utilities and services, situations which prevent the utilization of the property for the full range of uses allowed in that district. The use of zone classification sought would enhance and promote the comprehensive development of the immediate neighborhood and community. That the use or classification conforms generally to the objectives of the adopted comp plan and the purpose of this title. That the use will promote and not substantially impede the conservation of resources and energy and the conservation policy of Butte-Silver Bow, state of Montana. That the use meets the overall density, yard height, and other requirements in the zone in which it is located. That the use or classification will not adversely affect nearby properties or their occupants, conformity of the proposed use with the neighborhood plan if one has been adopted, compatibility of the proposed project with existing adjacent building structures, neighborhood topography, and other considerations, and expressed public opinion relating to the criteria enumerated above, including the views of neighborhood associations. Upon conclusion of the staff's evaluation and in recognition of the potential nuisance associated with a convenience store located in the vicinity of the Silverbow Drive-In Theater, the planning staff drafted conditions that would mitigate the impacts to the neighboring property. These conditions include a landscaping plan, a site plan illustrating the location of a sound barrier along the west property edge to buffer light and sound, and a request for a photometric plan illustrating the location and direction of light on the site, ensuring no lighting trespass. At the December 12th meeting, the Zoning Board of Adjustment chose to wait to vote, requesting the applicant provide additional information required by the conditions for their evaluation and consideration. The materials have been provided to the Board of Adjustment and made available via the Butte-Silver Bow public website. As reflected here, the proposed development is located in an RM2 district, which coincides with the boundaries of the Montana Connections Business Development Park. The property is generally located south of German Gulch Road, east of the Silverbow Drive-In, and west of Interstate 15. You can see an overview of the zoning here on this illustration, the boundary of the special zone itself, and an aerial photograph of the proposed site. Included also is the initially submitted proposed site plan for the development. The proposed site plan includes a 5,982 square foot building, 44 stalls of parking, and 2 fuel bays. At the Zoning Board of Adjustment's request, supplemental information was provided, and we will go through the primary elements that were submitted. The drawing here illustrates the landscaping plan and the plant schedule for the site. The landscaping plan shows an 8-foot vinyl fence along the site's west property line and a variety of both coniferous and deciduous trees, shrubs, and grasses. Butte-Silver Bow landscaping requirements do not specify necessity for native species. The applicant states that the landscape buffer is designed to allow deciduous trees to provide a thick canopy to assist in screening and reducing noise. Evergreens are incorporated to screen and prevent headlights from shining outside of the site. Shrubs shall be used on the outside of the fence to assist in reducing noise from the adjacent site. And a shrub hedge shall be used at the top of the stalls to capture headlights from leaving the site. In addition, the applicant has provided a photometric plan which indicates the foot candles of light being emitted on the ground by a proposed lighting design, i.e. the light one candle emits within 1 foot. Upon evaluation, the plan indicates that foot candles are most concentrated under each light itself, but dissipate to shed no light at further distances until the light is at 0. The light designs indicate they will include directional shields to achieve the desired effect. In its initial report, the planning staff presented the options available to the board. The board must determine if the applicants have supplied evidence to the satisfaction of the board that undue detriment will not result from the granting of a conditional use permit for this convenience store of fuel sales as a conditional use in the RM2 zone. Should the board decide that the proposed location is compatible with the proposed use, conditions of approval to mitigate identified impacts should be considered and may be discussed with the applicant. Section 1738-160 of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code discusses special or conditional use permits, that a decision of the board is required within 60 days, with the option to deny the application based on criteria and give their reasons for denial, or option to approve the application with conditions, and the zoning officer shall issue a zoning compliance permit with conditions specified thereon.
Thank you, Julia. Do any board members have any questions of the staff? Okay. Would the applicant step forward, please, and provide us any additional information you might have or further explanation? And identify yourself, please, by giving your name and address.
One more time.
There you go.
There we go. This is the red light, not the green light.
Red light.
Yep. My name is Richard Pickett. I'm with Maverick Incorporated. We're located at 185 South State Street in Salt Lake City, Utah. Really like to thank the board members for coming out on especially a very snowy day and fulfilling your civic duty and representing the city of Silver Bow. And well, it's not really a city of Silver Bow, a city and county of Silver Bow. And we really appreciate your time. We also thank Julia and Joella for their time and their efforts for putting together a fantastic report that helps illustrate our concerns and also the things we're willing to do for this project located next to the drive-in theater. Just want to reiterate that one of the reasons why we're coming in for a conditional use permit is because we're coming in as a lesser use in the zone. Most of this area is zoned industrial and can be used for more manufacturing and things of that nature. And that's why we're coming in, is because we're coming in as a lower use. And we do want to be a good neighbor to the drive-in, and we're willing to make those compromises as we've shown into our landscaping plan, though it's heavy landscaping along the western property line, in addition to the photometric study that shows that we're not allowing light displacement onto their property. I will also say that lighting, even though you don't have direct light coming onto their property, the Maverick will have a glow effect to it as well. It can be seen in most of our gas stations and convenience stores. But we feel still that we are going to be a good neighbor to the drive-in. We are currently almost about a month away from opening our first store in Montana in Helena. So we invite everybody to go up and look at that store once it's open in the next 30 days. And everything other than that, I'm here for any questions or comments you have for me, and I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, you're prepared to abide by all the conditions that have been suggested by the staff?
Yes.
Okay. Do any board members have any questions of the applicant?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Sir, have you guys had any outreach in between you and the owners of the drive-in? In between our last meeting or prior to that, or
we
has
have
there been any work on a personal level on that?
Not by myself. I know our real estate manager has had conversations, I think, but she is not here to represent herself. So from my understandings from the last meeting, I don't think we've had any conversations directly with them.
Okay.
And just worked with city staff.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions by the board? Okay, thank you, sir. Now, the Hanson family, who are the owners of the drive-in, I understand they have a PowerPoint presentation that they'd like to present. Sir, if you could identify yourself?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm Kim Wilson, I'm the attorney for the Hansons, and what I was
Speaking on their behalf.
speaking on their behalf, I was proposing to do a short presentation before they give their PowerPoint, if that's okay.
That would be totally okay.
Is this on?
Catch the red light, that's how you
Okay.
can tell.
All right, for the record, I'm Kim Wilson, representing Silverbow Drive-In, which is the last drive-in theater in Montana. I'm representing as well Holly and Mark Hanson and their family. Their son Jens will plan on doing a video that you mentioned before. And other members of the family, as well as we believe supporters, will also be presenting some specific facts to you about the supplemental information. The new information tonight, I think, is not limited to just the January 11th Maverick letter. It also included information that was first presented at the December hearing, including the fact that Maverick was the developer itself. The Hansons will plan on addressing factually the impacts of both that new information as well as the information in the January 11th letter, and how that does not mitigate their concerns about the impacts. They will also be addressing the conditions that the staff report or that the staff added and that you've alluded to, and how we believe those conditions as well do not prevent this from having an adverse impact on the theater and on the Hansons. In the January 11th letter, the Maverick representative included additional detail as well as proposed mitigation to address concerns raised by the adverse impact of this project on the Silverbow Drive-In. And as I said, my clients will address most of those factually. One thing I want to point out is that the plan schedule map that was attached to the January 11th letter lists almost all landscaping plants and trees that are non-native. Now, the planning director, Ms. Crane, just a moment ago mentioned that native plants are not required for landscaping. We would suggest that even if they're not required, they're certainly advisable in this high and dry climate, and it seems like having non-native plants as the basis for your landscaping mitigation is designed to fail as a mitigation measure. As the Hansons will discuss, the Utah drive-in examples noted in the January 11th letter are not comparable to this situation. So turning to those criteria that you must evaluate, which Ms. Crane has reviewed, that section 1738-150 requires that the board give due consideration to these criteria. We believe any of those criteria, if they are triggered sufficiently, would give the board justification to deny the application under 1738-160, so long as you explained your reason for denying the application based on those criteria. Based on our client's detailed comments and the other public comment that you've received and will receive tonight, the application is clearly contrary to many of these criteria as well. The application as well as the new information is contrary to these criteria. Among those criteria, criteria B is location, character, and design of adjacent buildings. This development, of course, is at odds with the adjacent theater, outdoor theater facility. The proposed vehicular access, circulation, and parking is designed in such a manner that it'll directly impact the theater, and those impacts we believe will be unavoidable given the layout. The signs and lighting, as the Hansons will discuss, are insufficient to mitigate the adverse impacts on their business. You're supposed to evaluate all potential nuisances arising from this. The potential nuisances here include the adverse impacts of light pollution, sound pollution, air pollution on the theater, as well as the potential for more crime and interference with the theater customers' enjoyment. Nothing in the new information, we believe, changes that. Criteria M is that the use or zone classification would enhance and promote comprehensive development in the immediate neighborhood and community. This one, it's hard to envision how you can say that this promotes comprehensive development in the immediate neighborhood when, first of all, the entire neighborhood is opposed to it, and more importantly, it will effectively destroy an existing historic and long-standing business in the neighborhood. And then, of course, criteria Q is that the use or classification will not adversely affect nearby properties. As the Hansons have noted, as the planning staff noted in their report, this development will adversely affect Silver Bow Drive-In. And again, there's nothing in the new information that changes that. Finally, criteria T allows you to look at expressed public opinion relating to these criteria. You have extensive and detailed public comments from the public that's uniformly against this development. Finally, I'd say that the argument that something worse could go in here under the normal zoning is kind of a red herring. That hypothetical worst development is not in front of you. And for the Hansons, this development, this proposal, is as existentially bad as it can get. In closing, because this proposal will adversely affect Silver Bow Drive-In Theater, the proposed convenience store's closest neighbor, the application should be denied. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Hansons to explain some of their concerns in detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pardon?
My name is Jens Hansen, and I'm a member of the Silver Bow Drive-In LLC. Speaking in opposition to the conditional use permit. I've got a few slides here that I think will showcase
Excuse
some of
me,
the problems.
Do you have something, Ms. Crane?
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, should we open the public hearing to consider these comments as contributions to the public
Yeah, this is a little
hearing?
unusual situation in view of what's happened. But I think at this point, I'll let him speak, and then we'll open the public hearing for comments. Related again, please, just to lighting, noise, sound. Okay, go ahead, sir. Continue.
Okay. So on this first slide here, you can just see a picture from the drive-in, I believe taken last summer. It just shows it's a nice, serene place during the day here. Obviously, there's no movies happening at that time. And this shot overlooks the proposed Mavericks fuel stop site. There's another overlooking the proposed site with the drive-in in the background. So this slide shows facing south along the drive-in's east property edge. This property line, that would be the line that the truck stop would be, or the fuel stop would be along. And there's approximately the turn in there would begin. And there's another shot there of it kind of getting dark. Just a nice shot of the drive in there. We use a lot of light to ensure a good picture. We put a lot of money and effort into keeping the light as high as we can. Here's a Google Maps picture of the drive-in as it is now. I believe the next slide shows about what the Mavericks would look like there. You can see the shrubs and that. The next slide, I've highlighted the 8-foot yellow fence, that 8-foot fence in yellow. So that would not contain the light, as you can see from vehicles turning in. So I added a vehicle there. If you use your imagination, it might look like a vehicle. And it's turning in and shining its lights all over the movie, the side one. It could hit the screen, it'd hit the fencing, and certainly would be hitting people's vehicles as they're enjoying the movie. Here, this is a shot. I was turning across the road and approximately where the entrance would be, and you can see my headlights shining all over the lot of the drive-in. Here's a couple stills here. You can see in the next slide, that's approximately where the 8-foot fence would be. So So you can see that's not going to do a whole lot of good as people are turning in to the fuel stop. This slide here shows all those red dots are the 25-foot tall light posts like you'd find at a Walmart parking lot. Some of those are only 12.5 feet from the east edge of the drive-in's property. So that would be very detrimental to people's enjoyment of the movie, to sit there next to that high lighting. You know, in August 2020, Walmart came out and they said they're going to do 160 movie screens in their parking lots. They're going to do drive-in movies. Well, you look today, that ended. It did not happen because I think they found out pretty quick nobody wants to sit in a parking lot to watch the drive-in movie right underneath 25-foot light poles. It's just not a good experience. You know, you got light shining off your hood everywhere else. So that's it. And on the lighting, as far as how bad it would be, and it would certainly affect the drive-in to a detrimental matter. So.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your comments. I'll now open the meeting up for public comment. Anybody present that would care to speak in support of this application can do so now. Are you speaking in support of it, Mr. Barrett?
No, I'd like to raise a procedural issue, if I may,
Well, go ahead.
briefly, without relinquishing my right to speak against it. I believe, I'm assuming, the first couple pages of reading that were done by the staff was reading some conditions that were proposed or something. Whatever the proposed conditions for a conditional use are not available to the audience. I couldn't read it, I couldn't understand it, and I think it behooves the staff to go print out whatever conditions they've got and get them distributed to the audience without interfering with the hearing. But right now, we don't know as citizens what the conditions are that are being proposed by the staff to you as a board. Thank you.
We are getting printed copies to distribute among the audience. Okay. Okay. What are you looking for? I'll look too.
glasses in case it goes to 1 a.m.
It's a lot sharper right now.
Probably, I mean, we'll have something little. You went, you're.
We should soon have about 50 copies that we can pass out among the audience. Might have to share it with your neighbor, but you'll be able to see them. And if you note the screen right now, pursuant to some sort of computer magic, it's now a lot sharper and probably can be read by most of you. But the printed copies will be coming. No? Looks like everybody now has access to a printed copy of the conditions. With that in mind, we'll now resume. Where I was is I asked for anybody in support of this application to come forward and please provide such information or arguments that you think would be pertinent. Mr. Fortune, if you identify yourself by giving your name and address, please.
Justin Fortune, 96 Liberty Lane, speaking in favor of this proposal. I know you asked us to just speak to what was presented tonight. It looks like the Maverick gas station has done everything that you guys have asked. He's made it clear, in my opinion, that he's willing to be a good neighbor, and I think any growth for Butte is good growth. When I say we, it seems like one gas station was already ran off, and I don't think any business should be ran off from this community. We just saw last week in the news that a business out there was going to lose 60 jobs. These guys are offering 30 new jobs. It's something that we should take a hard look at, and it's a good development, and it keeps a lot of people employed during construction and after construction.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that would care to speak in support of this application? And again, please identify yourself.
My name is Mark Garf. I live at 1149 Antimony Street. And I'd like to speak, maybe not so much on behalf of the Maverick, but just on behalf of any business that wishes to move to Butte and open up shop and employ our workers. Maverick, I think, has done a commendable job trying to address everyone's concerns. I reviewed the landscaping plan. They're planting 69 trees, which is more trees than have ever been planted on a commercial lot in the history of this county. I'd like to point out that no one was upset when the town pump on Montana Street planted 2 trees, both of which were non-native. I think the non-native argument is also a red herring, Counselor. I just think that we shouldn't use our nostalgia-filled emotions to bar future development in this county. Maverick has done what they've been asked to do in terms of meeting the conditions, and they have addressed the concerns. And I've also reviewed the lighting plan. The photometric study shows that the light is at 0 on the other side of the fence. It was interesting, the headlight shot. I think that should be mitigated. But if that's mitigated, I would be in favor of another business moving to Butte and opening up shop and employing our people. So in summary, I'd like this zoning board to think very hard about what this decision means in terms of a chilling effect on any future business that wants to move out there And what might happen to this parcel in the future if Maverick isn't allowed to develop on it? Will anyone ever have a development that meets the criteria of this county? I think this development does and should be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would care to speak in support of this application? Not hearing anybody, I'll now ask if there's anybody that would care to speak against this application. Sir? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Identify yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Mark Hansen. I'm the guy that owns the drive-in. And my wife and I built the drive-in and opened it in '77 and operated every summer since. And this proposal of this gas station going in would most definitely put me out of business. That'd be the end of the drive-in. And I'd like to answer one of the questions that one of the board members asked. Yes, I was contacted by Maverick's realtor about, at least a year and a half ago, and he'd been calling me quite frequently. Last time I had contact with him was last October. He wanted to buy the drive-in, the land the drive-in sits on, and I told him no, we want to continue running the drive-in. And like I say, they'll wipe me out. Please do the right thing. Don't let them wipe me out. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no need for any of that. Comments only, please. Do you have a comment to make, sir? And please identify yourself.
My name is Justin Stanchfield. I'm a resident of Wise River, so that tells you how important this drive-in is to just about everyone in this room that we come out on these roads. I'm also a member of the Beaverhead County Planning Board, so I kind of understand the pressures you're up against. And with all due respect to the Maverick Corporation, we see a lot of promises made during the proposal stage of a project. Not all of them bear fruit when the project is done, and I really, looking at the infrastructure out there, and I can't see any way it's not going to impact the drive-in, no matter what they do to put up, no matter what kind of sound barriers or vegetation. It's just kind of a bad proposal at a bad spot, and I think the Silverbow Drive-In and the Hansen family are a big enough fixture in this community that we really need to think about preserving that as opposed to another truck stop coming in. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anybody else who would care to speak against this application? Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Ellen Jonar. I own the theater with my parents and my brother. We've been through this, so it is not a small gas station. They want you to believe that. It is a little bit bigger than the brand new Florence coffee shop that was just built on Harrison Avenue. Just to kind of put that out there. An 8-foot fence and some trees. Trees take years to grow. And there is 16 25-foot light poles all the way around their property, some close to ours. How is an 8-foot fence going to cover that? Their canopies, gas canopy is 15 to 16 feet high. And yes, they told us it would dim when there wasn't cars, but constantly, my customers are going to see it going on and off, because an 8-foot fence is not going to cover that. Their entrance is so close, it's close to our property line. Again, my brother showed you, that light goes across there. You cannot take a fence and go all the way to the road and block that. There is no way. Also, signs, there's gas price signs, entrance signs, they all have light. And according to zone regulations and special conditional use permit, 17.38.150H, proposed sign and lighting. However, their signs are not on that at all. And those give off light. So that's an unknown that we're concerned about. Sound, acceleration, deceleration, people talking, it's a constant sound that our customers have to sit and listen to. They sit outside. And so if they're listening to these people, they're workers, they're not gonna go out and tell these people they can't talk. They have a sitting area outside. They're gonna sit and talk. Air pollution, light pollution, it's all gonna cause us to go out of business. Nobody's gonna come. And I would like to remind you that the staff planning board presentation for Maverick on slide 21 I'm going to quote, "Silverbow Drive-In movie theater, which may adversely impact by the proposed use. The movie theater relies on darkness for optimal movie viewing. The addition of convenience stores and gas stations could impact the darkness. There's an admission. They just admitted that they can hurt our business. And according to zone or regulations of special or conditional use permit 17.38.50Q, the use of this classification will not adversely affect nearby properties or their occupants." So the amount of support that we have received from all over Butte, surrounding areas, has been amazing. I had a guy reach out to me from Canada. He comes to Butte every year during the summer, plans a whole family trip to come to the drive-in. Other than that, he wouldn't come here. I have a lady from Bozeman. Her child has a disability and sensory needs, and the only way they can come to a show is to come there. He cannot sit in a movie theater. So we have customers that travel all over. They spend money here, they shop here. We're an attraction. And I highly doubt you're ever gonna hear somebody say, "Let's go to Silverbow to go to a gas station." Like really, think about it. Let's go on down. Like you're not. And we have customers come weekly, they shop here, they eat here, they come every week. So we're not bringing money to Butte, we're driving it away. Because they're gonna hit that gas station and they're gonna go on their little merry way to Missoula. At least if they go to Rocker, they're like, "Oh, let's go into town and get something to eat." That's not happening. So I really hope you sit back and think about the memories that you have made at the drive-in. Maybe your first day, bringing your kids, your family, your grandkids. Maybe you snuck in and you got away with it. Or you didn't. But if you approve this, you're gonna take memories away, not just from like your own children, your grandchildren, and other people of our community and surroundings. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please. Let's just have comments. This isn't a sporting event.
My name is Holly Hansen, and I am the other half, one quarter of the business. I just want to make a few comments. First of all, we had a woman from Deer Lodge design a petition about the lights and the noise and how it would bother the drive-in. She got by herself, on the foot, 540 signatures. Also, and other people around have gotten another couple hundred signatures. We have almost 900 signatures opposing, wanting this permit to be denied. I have given this planning board those copies of those files for the petition. I just want to bring them there. And now I'll do my quick spiel on my comments. I hope you had time to read my letter. Put a lot of heart and soul in the last 47 years at this place.
Yes.
The use or classification will not adversely affect, one of the rules is that it should not adversely affect nearby properties or their occupants. The drive-in would be adversely affected. A drive-in requires darkness for optimal viewing. Also, the compatibility of the proposed project with existing adjacent building structures, neighborhood topography, and other considerations. This fuel store, C-store, is not a compatible business, and it would not be in harmony with the existing rural neighborhood or the existing drive-in theater. We have many expressed public opinions, which I hope you have taken into consideration. Also, with the supplemental information that was proposed on the 24th, on January 11th of 24, the Utah drive-ins that were pictured in their slides, they're not compatible with our situation. They're at the same level. There's no 24/7 business next door that's shining lights on them. And granted, I think our drive-in looks a lot better than two of those. The light study that was requested by the board here, to me that meant that it would show how it impacted the drive-in or how the light bled over the property lines, not just a study of where the lights are going to be. We know they're going to be there. It does not address how much light is projected, how much light will trespass, and it does not provide proof that the drive-in would be unaffected by the illuminating lights and glare of the fuel stop. Light pollution will come from those 16 light poles, as my daughter said, and it will diminish the screen's effectiveness and be distracting to the viewer's eye. If you're sitting there watching the movie and your peripheral vision sees that one light there, you're going to be drawn to that. there's just no way we can coexist. The vehicles sweeping in, turning, we can't say they're just gonna speed right in and they're gonna have their lights on dim. And they only come before 8 o'clock, or they only are gonna enter after 1 o'clock in the morning. That's just not the way it is. We can't control the customers that are turning into their place. As for the proposed landscaping, many of the trees are not native to Montana. I visited with the horticulturist, and he looked at the landscaping plan and expressed that as presented to the board, it would do little to mitigate the light pollution. In order to really screen, those trees screen, they have to be 20 feet tall already. A mature tree out there 20 feet tall is not going to be 20 feet tall when it starts at 6 feet. It'll be 20 years before it's 12 feet tall. All trees and shrubs would need extra care for the first 3 to 5 years. The windy conditions there, wind decimates a tree. The windy and colder conditions. If it's not well cared for, they won't last. The 33 Australian pines, they don't do well in the wind. And the Colorado spruce are hardy, but they need water for the first 5 years. So in order for a tree plan to work, you have to be 20-foot tall trees on a 15-foot berm that would go clear down the property and be maintained by Maverick. And their fence is there, and our fence is there, and their trees are between them. I don't know how they can manage that. I also would like to mention the safety, traffic, and vandalism, and we're in a rural area. I'm concerned that patrons of the fuel stop will park at one of those 17 parking spots, and if you could put that one slide back up that shows where their lights will be, you will see that there are 17 parking spots that they will have an unobstructed view of the movie. They can come in and park there. And what fuel stop employee is going to be designated that he has to go out and say, you've been there more than 20 minutes. Our drive-in customers come not only from the surrounding area, but locations far and wide. Non-locals, as my daughter said, shop to eat and stay in Butte. They even run around gathering the petitions to say, please don't do this to our favorite place in Butte. The drive-in is much like the trees in the landscaping plan. The trees want to survive, but the wind begins to desiccate them. The needles fall off, and the tree's trying to live. Unfortunately, the tree doesn't grow. It just is there. It just barely maintains, perhaps a few needles. Maybe it'll grow 6 inches in 5 years. Yes, the drive-in has wind too. And we also, with an adjacent fuel stop, we're going to have lights, noise, and air pollution. Our movie patrons are like the needles on the tree. They start to drift away if they've had a bad experience. They won't come back. And as I heard one man say, it is not nostalgia. It is not nostalgia to want to keep an existing business open. It's not nostalgia. Please deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else who would care to speak? Sir, could you come forward?
Good evening, I'm Bill Foley from 804 Zarelda Street. And I don't understand why it's gotta be one or the other here. Everybody here would be in favor of building the gas station in Silver Bow County, just not in this particular plot of land. Mark and Holly and their family have run this drive-in since 1977. Mark tells me that this would shut their drive-in down. Mark spent almost his entire life running movie theaters, and I think I trust him when he says that. I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why to vote no on this. You know, there's safety, crime, the fact that all these neighbors don't want it there. That's really good, but my reason for speaking up tonight is the children of Butte. I have a 20-year-old daughter, 14-year-old daughter, and a 16-year-old son. And on the nights the drive-ins aren't working like now, if they want to go do something in Butte on a Friday, Saturday night, they go to Walmart and hang out. And there's a lot of kids that do that. There's nothing for our kids to do. I grew up, I had the Butte Copper King games to go to. A lot of you, some of you have had, Mr. Reese, at least I know you're old enough to have been at the Columbia Gardens. I've heard stories of the Columbia Gardens as a kid. My grandma told me about when she was old enough to ride the trolley at the Columbia Gardens, and that went away. I think having the Silver Bow Drive-In go away would be like that. We'd be talking in nostalgia about such a great place. Remember when we had such a great place? We've heard that too much in Butte. That's what we get. Remember when we had this? Remember when we had that? We don't have a lot of those things right now. The Silver Bow Drive-In deserves to be saved, and I think you guys can save it. And 20 years from now, when that drive-in's still going strong, you can look around and say, I was part of a decision that helped save the piece of Americana, a great place for Butte, and a great place for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else who would care to speak in support, opposition, excuse me, to this application? Ma'am? Oh, ma'am?
Huh?
Did you want to talk?
Yes, please.
We'll lower that for you then.
Hi, my name is Natasha Johnson, and I do believe that placing that gas station there would be a bad decision due to the fact that the light and noise could interact and interfere with people watching the movie. Say you're trying to watch a movie at home and someone just keeps banging on a door. It would draw your attention away from the movie. That's what it would be like if like a loud car or something came into the Maverick. It would draw the attention away from the movie. It's like taking like pieces off of a tree or something. It would just keep falling off, and soon the drive-in, if the Maverick is there, the drive-in would go out of business.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Is there anybody else who, ma'am? I saw her first, Kathy. You can be next.
Good evening, folks. My name is Serena Grundhauser. I own K&K Metal Works, a woman-owned metal fabrication business, and I live at 119005 Juniper Acres Road. From my front porch, you can see Screen 2. I don't want the noise. I don't want the congestion. My granddaughter, who goes to Butte High, has to walk with one of the neighbor kids across the overpass with no pedestrian walkway. They're already dealing with traffic coming from the industrial park. We don't need that. We have human traffickers. We just had a case where people got caught with 10,000 pills of fentanyl just over by Anaconda. They're coming up 15, they're coming down 90. We don't need an extra stop right there where we have children that are going to Ramsey, East Junior High, and Butte High that are getting dropped off and perfectly being able to snatch. The other thing is I am on a well. If one of these tanks cracks, nobody's going to know for a while, and it's going to leak into the groundwater. Every person in my neighborhood that I know is on a well. I don't want to have to deal with this again. I already had to deal with tainted water living in Reed Point back in the 1990s. And I don't want it. I really hope you guys will think about your kids, your grandkids, and if you were in my situation. I moved out of Butte to get away from the crime, to get away from the noise, and now it's coming right to my backyard. Please don't pass this.
Thank you. Kathy, your turn.
Good evening, Kathy Maloney. I've written a letter to you earlier in this process, so you know I live up the road. I drive that every day. I'd like to speak to another couple issues. Holly and Mark Hansen are good, honest, hardworking people. They play by the rules, and they've built a local treasure. My grandchildren love it. I love it. All the kids in our community love it. If you don't know, I have a really big heart for kids, and I'd like them to have something to do. This conditional use permit provides for the sale of a strange little piece of property at the possible loss or compromise of a local landmark. I'd like our next generation to be able to say that they've gone to the drive-in. As you've heard, it's one of the few remaining. This little piece of property has already used their favor from the county. The land at issue was difficult to sell. When they rebuilt the bridge, they used all of that dirt to backfill it, and now they've made it so possibly someone could purchase it. They bargained for that, and they got that. They bought that piece of property zoned as it is. This conditional use permit is being met with a great deal of resistance because it is not a good fit for our neighborhood. We are trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Just so somebody's uncle can make a buck, sell this piece of property? Please deny this conditional use permit. Let the owners of that land sell it to someone with a need for what it is, zoned as it is. This is not the right transaction. And please stop, pardon my language, pimping out our best local features for a fast buck. I urge you, please do the right thing. We don't need another conditional use permit in this little tiny area. You've had enough resistance. We've written the letters. We know this is a great thing for our community, whether I'm emotional or whether I'm sticking up for the children and the next generation. I want our kids to be able to go to the drive-in and say, yep, I've done that since I was a kid and we're lucky to have it. So please, help these honest, hardworking, good people keep the legacy that they've built.
Thank you. Mr. Ringsack?
As Henry VIII said to his second wife, this won't take long.
Okay. Could you please identify yourself for the record, though, please, Mick?
I get nervous with public speaking.
No, you're pretty good at it.
My name's Elton Ringsock. I live at 3310 Hannibal Street in Butte. I've been involved in economic development in Butte since 1980 when I was the president of the Butte Merchants Association uptown. I was a regional administrator for President Bush. I was a presidential appointee to Small Business Administration for 8 years and did $40 billion worth of lending annually, and a whole lot of it in Butte, Montana and southwest Montana. I've been at the Butte Connections Park, which used to be the TIFID, board of directors for 13 years. Now, I can't speak for the board or the TIFID, but I'm speaking for myself. But that experience, I think, is invaluable in this situation. And I've also been a 13-year member of the Upper Clark Fork River Advisory Council. So I have several concerns. First and foremost, that Connections Park is a gem and a jewel. It's one of the best things that's happened. We have 800 employees out there now, 800 people. Then you got people on German Gulch Road. You have another 100 people up at the Gardens, and that's the only exit to get to those places. Even now, I have employees come to me and say, you're a board member, you gotta do something about the traffic. It's too tough in the morning and at night, and in the winter, it's really dangerous. Also, there's a couple new developments. We have 13 businesses out there. There's a couple new ones coming. Kennelly's are building a DEF station for diesel. And they're gonna have 800 trucks a month running once they get that up and going. The first and largest one out there, FedEx, I helped fund with Zions Bank. They do 100 trucks a day. They're an anchor for that place. The Port of Montana is out there. They have trucks in there and out all day long. We've got over 1,000 people a day coming in there and out there every single day. And I checked the Montana Department of Transportation on the site and the road. Can we, do something for a new exchange for 119? The last study done was 2015. That bridge across the interstate needs to be replaced. They have it on their to-do list in 2 or 3 years. You don't want to put that much additional load on there and hope it stays open so we can run the park for the next 2 or 3 years. So I have one other thing I'd like to say. I got on Googled Maverick, and there's a wonderful site for anybody to like to see. It's called What's Up With That? And if you're curious about something in your neighborhood or your community, and you're having trouble getting answers from officialdom, then you go to What's Up With That? And somebody asked Maverick, this was the question, is the planned new Maverick store, and this was in Wellsville, Minnesota, not too long ago, going to be a truck stop or just a regular gas station? Both labels have been used to describe it. And when Mr. Ronning made that presentation, he said, oh, it's just gonna be a family gas station. The family will come in, the kids can get candy bars, mom and dad can go to the bathroom and take a break, and then it can go on. Well, that just being a gas station isn't gonna work. So anyway, these guys called Maverick and they talked to the planning director, a guy named Todd Myers, and he described it as a small truck stop. Then they called it back and he said, well, depending upon how you define that term, that might be a little bit misleading. He said, yes, the new Maverick station will serve semi-trucks. On this one, there'll be 7 fuel islands. That's the same as there is at the Rocker sites, both at Conoco and at Exxon. So it's not a gas station. They're gonna have 7 fuel islands on the property with high clearance, high flow diesel pumps that's specifically for semi-trucks. They will also provide a couple of parking stalls for the big rigs. So it's not a gas station. And we really don't need, Butte-Silver has more fueling stations for diesel trucks per capita than any other place in the United States almost. So with that said, I wish you would consider it. It's not necessary, it's not needed, and it's detrimental to economic development. My real concern going forward is you put that truck stop there, you're gonna have such a load at the interchange that we're gonna be able to get anybody else into the industrial park. It shouldn't mean we don't need it. FedEx has their own diesel fueling stations. You know, the guy that ran it said, boy, that's really a dumb decision. We already got 2 within 10 minutes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Flanick from Ramsey, Montana. It looks like we've diverted a little bit from the sound and lighting, but that said, I'll continue with my notes. It's really unfortunate that the citizens of Silver Bow County keep finding themselves having to come here and fight our own local government to protect our health, safety, and welfare. But that seems to be the case time and time again. The Montana Code states that zoning regulations must be designed to promote the public health, safety, and welfare. So something to keep in mind when interpreting this zoning, that's how it's designed, to protect the welfare. And something else I'd like to point out, it's not just the drive-in that's here, it's members of the public and the neighborhood that surrounds this place, because there is a residential neighborhood right across the interstate. We shouldn't even really be here because this development just flat out violates the zoning that's in place now. Right off the bat, it violates the public welfare and health and safety because I'll give you several examples. It will bring transients, it will bring toxic air, and it will bring drug trafficking. We see all those things already. We have examples of that happening in Rocker. And this will bring more of the same. So that violates that section of the code. In specific sections of the code, they're not supposed to have a structure within 200 feet of the eastern boundary. They do. They're supposed to be 50-foot yard on the sides. They don't on the western side. So that's going to put the traffic and everything just right against the Hanson's property line because there's no 50-yard there, 50-foot yard. And then regarding the noise section, the code requires a 60 dBA, 10% average on the property boundary where it adjoins non-zoned property. Well, the eastern edge adjoins the interstate non-zoned. And I went down and took some noise readings at great distance from the fueling stations in Rocker, and it's almost constantly above 60 dBA. And they never, the planning department never required them to present how they were going to meet that 60 dBA on the eastern property line, and they never provided anything either. So that's another violation of the zoning as written. So I kind of want to think about and have you guys think about, 50 years from now, we're all going to be gone. Most of us, not all of us. We won't even be here. No, she won't. So, we need to think about, what are we going to leave behind for generations to come? Because once it gets put in place, there's no turning back. And we need to start putting people first, thinking about the future and not just how much tax revenue we can generate for Uptown Butte and to pave the streets on the west side. And it's not that we're opposed to truck stop or businesses, the residents. The problem we have is a lack of planning and zoning and a lack of not a good development pattern. It's the duty of the zoning commission to propose and adopt an appropriate development pattern and one that would properly locate truck stops so we could have them and they could have a place to build without being next to a drive-in or next to a residential neighborhood. And that's really the problem, not that we don't want them at all, it's just that they got to be in the right place, as Mr. Foley was saying earlier. And unfortunately, in Silver Bow County, we haven't developed a countywide development pattern like most counties around the nation have done, and they properly locate them a distance from residential neighborhoods so you don't impact people's health with the toxic air, et cetera. Another concern out there is obviously the lighting and noise are, but I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we do not have law enforcement. We had an issue out north of Ramsey several years ago where they had to call the police. About an hour later, the highway department showed up, the highway patrol. I'm like, well, it was 2 miles from the highway. I asked, what are you guys doing here? He's like, well, we have an agreement with the county that we'll respond to rural calls. Same thing, our commissioner gave us an example up north of Walkerville. They had called the police up there, just north of Walkerville, and they dispatched the highway patrol. Well, the highway patrolman came from Dillon all the way up there. Almost 2 hours later, he finally showed up, rather than a local policeman coming. So crime will occur, and there's no law enforcement. So that is a big impact on the public safety. And that's really nothing that's been brought up. So I wanted to point that out because I'm not even sure how many people are aware of that. So anyway, in closing, just want to make sure that, you know, the Montana code does require that the zoning is designed to protect public health, safety, and welfare. It does not, this development does not, it will violate that. It will be a huge impact to the welfare of the residents across the highway, across the street. There's the residential neighborhoods there. There's the town of Silver Bow, which is right there, which was not regarded in the evaluation. A lot of residential homes in there. So when we look back in 100 years from now, do we want to be thankful that we were good stewards and caretakers? Or do you want people to look back and wonder why, in the midst of one of the largest Superfund cleanups in the world, we continued to destroy and trash our own county? So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody that else who would care to speak, hopefully with something new?
Hello. I'm Levi McMahon. I live at 119028 Juniper Acres Road, which is right across the interstate from the drive-in theater. I have went there every year I can remember, and ever since I have had a job, I've gone there by myself versus with my parents, and I just can't imagine my kids or grandkids not having that chance to go to the drive-in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Chairman Wing, my name is Jim Ayers, and I live at Ramsey, Montana. And the reason what I think needs to be said is that as a former business owner in Butte for like 38 years, what people may not realize is how fickle the public is. If it's inconvenient to them, they are not going to go there. Even just a little bit of construction or something like that would just absolutely annihilate our business. If it's not a convenient and pleasurable place to go, if they see lighting, noise, pollution, they're not going back to the drive-in. You go to a theater to have that isolated experience and enjoy the movie, not to be impacted by the outside environment. Even, you know yourselves, if you're in even the indoor theaters, somebody's making noise in the theater, it definitely detracts from the movie, and you stop doing those things in that situation. The public is very fickle, and I really believe, I also worked in the movie industry, they will be out of business if this happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Debbie McMahon. I live at 119028 Juniper Acres Road, just across the highway. That was my son that got up and spoke. Out of all of our children, they have all loved to go over there, and our grandkids now love to go over there too. I know that we've touched on this before, and we've had so much great feedback that I don't think I have too much more to add. The fear of the crimes is a huge, huge fear for me. My neighbor right down there has already testified that, you know, the kids have to walk across the bridge to get to the school bus and when they get dropped off. The emergency vehicles response time, we're very worried about that. The noise pollution and light pollution, I think everybody's touched on that exponentially, and we don't need to go into that too much anymore. The gentleman from Antimony that said something about not worrying about nostalgia, I don't know if he's from here or not, because Butte is very proud of their historical, nostalgic buildings. They have buildings all over the place that are marked as historical places that need to be protected, and this should be another one of them. And his other argument about employment opportunities, I think everybody knows how hard it is to find people to work for us, and there are plenty of employment opportunities out there, and if he knows some young person that needs a job, I think he should bring them around to find a job, because I know Highway 55 had issues. We're always looking for people at St. James. There's plenty of employment, so please do not look at that. That is not a factor. You even said what we needed to discuss was noise pollution, light pollution, and these guys did an excellent job of that, and they need to keep their livelihood going and save this for future generations.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Mr. Barrett?
I want to put this in for the record, and Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Evan Barrett. I live at 807 West Silver in Butte. I am retired now. However, I spent 26 years in active development related to Butte and the state of Montana, 18 specifically in Butte as the executive of the Butte Local Development Corporation, and 8 years running the Governor's Office of Economic Development. There's probably nobody in Butte or anyone in this room or anyone around who has worked harder and said yes to develop Butte and to make Butte a welcoming place for business. I've seldom looked at a project and said, no. That generally isn't in my vernacular. That being said, this particular project is a development that Butte does not want, and it is something that Butte does not need. Baseline, do we need another convenience store way out there? Do we need another place for gas, which is all maybe a mile from a massive development of both convenience store, truck stop, and gasoline? I would submit we don't need it. The traveling public, frankly, doesn't need it. Maverick needs it to make a buck. And I don't think Butte and the basic nature of Butte is for sale for everybody that wants to make a buck. This is, again, this is something we do not need. The public input on this has been almost unanimous in opposition. And by the way, as a board, you are to take that into consideration. That alone, the public perspective of this, as well as the reaction to the neighbors, is enough to warrant a negative vote on this conditional use application. What I asked to be entered into the record was this column, last picture show, that was in the Montana Standard this morning. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not, which is why I submitted it for the record. It was a joint effort by my friend Mick Ringsack and myself 2 days ago. We thought someone should try to encapsulate some of the things that are adherent here in this process. I'd like to just hit a couple things here. As he said, and as I said, we said in the column, we agree with the owners of an important existing business that reflects the nature of Butte and the historic nature of Butte. We agree with them that this entity with we think of it as a truck stop with lights, too much light, too much noise, too much fume pollution and traffic will destroy the drive-in, and it will create serious problems for the thousands who use that exit and live nearby. Now, when you met 2 months ago, I would recall for you that you were confronted immediately with a recommendation, a positive recommendation given to you by the staff. Now, I say this with all due respect to the staff and to the efforts that you have to undertake, but you had a recommendation, a positive recommendation for approval at your first meeting, and at that point, your staff did not consult with a single resident of Juniper Acres. They did not consult with the Transportation Hub or any of the clients or businesses out there, none, or any of the businesses in the Connection Park, the Transportation Hub meaning the Port of Montana, and then the Connections Park, did not even speak to the drive-in. There was a rush to judgment to say yes. I understand that. We want to be welcoming as a community. But what was the basis upon we had to say yes? There was no serious time, by the way, for public input at the first meeting. And several of you were not here, but of the others, you know, there were 2 25-page PowerPoint presentations put up here. It was the first time any citizen of Butte saw them, was at your meeting. And we were told you had to digest that and get your comment in by midnight. It took comments until the next day. A lot of people objected, but we did not have adequate information, nor did you, to say yes to anything. The entire process was, and I think does remain, flawed, but it was presented to the public and supported without previously revealing to the public. You were asked to say yes before the public knew who the owner-operator would be. You were asked to say yes without anyone providing a site plan. You were asked to say yes without reviewing the prospective company's financials. You were asked to say yes without having checked with any personal or business neighbors about impacts. You were asked to say yes without looking at historical impacts. You were asked to say yes without conducting or requesting any traffic studies. You were asked to say yes without demonstrating any community need, and more than that. I put that together with the overwhelming negative response of the public, the citizens of Butte-Silver as rationale for saying no. This is a conditional use permit. You are not obligated to say yes. You are not obligated to give conditions for use necessarily. This is a discretionary act on the part of you as a board, not required. Now, if the board and the staff feel compelled to support something so they can say yes to Maverick, I would suggest a condition number 10. I would seriously suggest this, and Maverick can agree to it or not. But without this, we're not doing justice to Butte, to Butte's history, to Butte's businesses. I would suggest a condition number 10 that would say that if Maverick would agree to shut down and turn off the lights and everything and shut down between 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. from May through September and then reopen for traffic, that'd be a condition that would be fair to the drive-in theater. Now, I think it's a pretty onerous requirement on a business, and they may feel like they have to say no to that. Well, that is okay. If they want to say no, fine. But you certainly could place that as a reasonable business condition on them that treats their business neighbors correctly. So that would be a condition I would certainly feel comfortable if you were to propose that. Again, this is a serious thing for Butte. This is not something we take lightly. I really respect the role you have, and I respect the role your staff has. But as I said, I think the process was flawed from the beginning, and we've gone a recommendation of yes, and now we're working like dogs to try to justify a yes, when in fact, it ought to be a no. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Yes, ma'am, if you could come forward and identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Alicia Johnson. I live at 1605 Florence Avenue. I am the mother of the young daughter that spoke earlier. I very strongly do not believe that having this station put across the street, essentially, from the drive-in would be a good idea for a simple factor. The best way I can explain it is the squirrel factor.
Pardon?
The squirrel factor.
Squirrel factor?
Yes. I worked for the Motherlode Theater for the last 5 years as a lighting technician. I can guarantee you that just the pure light glow is going to be enough of a distraction to those attending the movie. I saw it every time we had a show. If there was a light slightly out of place, the audience was paying more attention to that than what they came for. So I don't see it being sensible. A fence is not going to be high enough. Trees are not going to grow fast enough to hide that. The sound alone is going to be astronomical. You can see that if you walk past the gas stations in Rocker. I see it every year at Halloween. All you hear is the trucks just going through the streets to get candy for the kids. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does that conclude the remarks in opposition, or does somebody else wish to speak? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody else that cares to speak in opposition to this application. So according to the rules, the respondent or the applicant now has an opportunity to do a rebuttal with regard to the comments that he heard. If you care to do so, sir.
I don't have much to say. Again, Rich Piggy with Maverick. I really just want to first thank the residents of Silverbow and Butte that came out today. I've done this for a long time, and it's always nice when you have a public involvement that's courteous and kind and really addresses the issues at hand. I really appreciate those that came out to support the drive-in, and especially the owners. I think they make a valid point with their concerns. And it's one of those things that I love about the process that we go through, especially as people on planning commissions. I really appreciative of the staff to kind of address some of the other concerns. Their job is just to look at the hard facts in the specifications and the notes of the city, whatever the code requires. And that's what they're analyzing, and that's what they base their decisions on. But again, this is a public hearing, just like we met 2 months ago. We had the voice of those that are residents, and that's part of the process. And this is what you guys come to listen to and to understand and appreciate the value which you have in your neighborhood. And I love the process. I think it's an amazing thing, and I think the city has done really well in this situation. I've seen it go the other way, and I really appreciate it. As far as the things, I'll just keep my things simple. We hope to have addressed the lighting concerns. There's things we can do with the light fixtures. We have louvers that are on it. We can put shields on them. We can eliminate the direct light that could possibly enter into the drive-in. But again, just as somebody noted, there's always going to be a glow with it. There's always going to be an impact of just the natural essence of the lighting that's going to be around. We're doing the best we can to filter out the sound. That's why the trees, and we varied it with evergreens and also deciduous trees. And yes, they're not native, but again, we can look at those. Trees can be swapped out with whatever people think is more native or would be more stability, have more stability here in this environment here in Butte. As I realized this last night, how cold it can get, and my hotel room couldn't keep it out, so I understand. The one thing that, and it was also pointed out by one of the owners of the drive-in, that left turn movement in is a hard one for us to deal with the headlights. As you know, we can't put a fence out into the city right away. That's something we're not able to do, which would be the easiest thing to screen that. Also, that roadway is elevated, so it's coming across pretty high as well. We've done the best we can with evergreen trees and shrubs there at the entrance, and that's what the part of that landscaping is up there in that upper corner, is to help filter that. We're not able to really work with the neighbors at the drive-in at this time, unless we have more into our design phase, which would be after conditional use. We look to see what other efforts we can make to help screen those headlights coming in on that left-hand turn. But other than that, I really appreciate people's comments today. Appreciate you guys making your efforts to volunteer your time, and that's all I have. If you have any other questions for me, I'm more than willing to answer.
I don't think we do, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting. This is a conditional use permit. Last December, we had 2 months that we agreed, or 1 month. We're planning to make our decision in January, but here we are in February, and I think we are all in a position to make our decision. Unless I hear differently, I'll assume that. Okay. Is there any board discussion with regard to this?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I just want to be very upfront. I am not voting tonight. I was not at the previous meeting. Right. I have watched that meeting. I have gone through all of the materials provided to us a couple times now. We've been through this with Loves too. This stuff is hard because Butte does have nostalgia. Butte does love things that they used to love when they were kids. They love to hear those stories, and that's great. But I think there's just the basis of the opposition. This seems to be a huge, huge assumption that nobody will go to the drive-in if there's a gas station next door. And that might be true for some people. I don't think it is for the majority of people in this room tonight or the majority of people in this town. In talking to people in town, asking about this, you know, people approach me about this stuff all the time because they know I'm on the board. I have yet to find one person that will not go to the drive-in or even know someone who will not go to the drive-in because there's some light next door filtering in. So I think it doesn't even give the Hanson family enough credit for the successful business they've ran. Their customers are not that fickle that they're just going to leave because a gas station is next door. This is my personal opinion. There's been comment that we have no idea where the light from this is going to go. We have a photometric plan that has been provided. It's very clear where the light cuts off. I happen to do this for a living. I understand LED lights are very direct. You can make them go where you want. You can keep them away from places you don't want them. They're not your traditional old school street light that just shines and glows. I am not for 1 second denying that there isn't going to be a glow from this. The representative from Maverick has said that. What I want to kind of go at, though, is this is an industrial zoned piece of land. From the comments tonight, it sounds like anything that goes there that provides light in a parking lot or a canopy situation or anything is unacceptable and will put the drive-in out of business. So I guess my question in general is, what type of business could possibly go on the 17 acres that would not put the drive-in out of business? Because I don't know of any industrial type thing that could go there, and they wouldn't be here tonight. If an industrial thing wants to go there, they don't have to come here because they can just go there and build. And we get no say in it, we have no conditions to put down on it, nothing. This, although we're going backwards or to a less intensive use, this situation gives us an opportunity to kind of get two parties together to maybe figure something out that'll work. I don't see how with the arguments tonight, I just don't see how any business could possibly ever go on these 17 acres that would not be detrimental, in the Hanson's opinion, to their business. I understand why they want to fight for their business. Everyone should fight for their business. That's their livelihood, that's their job, that's their everything. They should be proud of this, they are proud of it, and they have every reason to be. This is evidenced by everyone here tonight. But we cannot, as a board, just say, nothing can ever go there because the drive-in's here and we love the drive-in. That's not fair to anyone in this community. It's not fair to any businesses that do want to come here. It's not fair to anyone that you have a volunteer board making, or not arbitrary decisions, excuse me, but decisions that have huge impacts on businesses that are just coming from a volunteer board telling people they can and can't even come here. That's a very slippery slope that I don't know where that stops. But I just want to go back to the fact that if there's nothing that can go here, I mean, any business that goes on the 17 acres is gonna have lights. It's gonna have parking lot lights. If it's an industrial application, it's gonna have tall lights, you know? And if they don't wanna put LED direct lights in, they don't have to because we have no say in that. So I just wanna, although I'm not voting, I have no say in this tonight, I just wanna reiterate that this is, I know it's not ideal, I know it's not perfect, I know it's not great, but there is some flexibility here to make something maybe work. And I would just hate for us to run Maverick out of town, say thank you, but no thanks, and then have something else come in here that we have no control over because it's an industrial application in an industrial zone piece of land, doing everything completely legally. And that's my biggest concern is there could be something that comes in there that really, they could shine their lights right at your business probably, and there's not much we can say if they are in the right zone for that. So that's my biggest concern. And just another note quickly, there's kind of been a lot of kind of talk about we might be bought off or something. We're just trying to chase bucks we are up here as a volunteer board. We're not up here for fun. We all have families at home. We're sitting up here listening to this. We're doing community service. We're not up here being bought off by Maverick, gas stations, by anyone, by the driving anyone, no one. And for people to even infer that is very disrespectful. And with that being said, to summarize, I just want to say something, if Maverick doesn't go here, something much, much worse could, and I know, as Mr. Wilson said, the worst development isn't in front of us. My biggest fear is the worst development isn't gonna come in front of us, and we're gonna have no say in it, and they're gonna do whatever they want because they're an industrial application in an industrial zone piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Tyler. Does anybody else care to have?
Mr.
Eric?
Chairman, members of the board, I think first off, I want to thank everyone for all their passionate, respectful, constructive dialogue, both tonight and at the December meeting, whether that was, you know, in opposition or support of this application. It's evident there's a lot of passion for the drive-in theater. I think that's very important. So thank you guys for coming out and supporting the drive-in. I also want to thank the applicant's willingness to incorporate certain design aspects. You know, some of the suggested conditions of approvals into the plan, and providing us the supplemental information from the last meeting. You know, I too enjoy and appreciate what the drive-in brings to the community. I go to the drive-in, and to build off what Mr. Schaefer said, I will continue to go to the drive-in. I urge everyone else to do the same. Obviously, you don't want to see any new business, whether it's outright permitted or coming in via conditional use permit, put the drive-in out of business. I think Mr. Schaefer made a good point that any use or any development on this parcel could have negative impacts on the drive-in. It's currently vacant land, which is always going to be the best case scenario for minimal impact to any neighboring property. You know, I think it's important for us as a board to look at this conditional use permit in a broader sense, to determine if the proposed use is in harmony with the adjacent area and would support comprehensive community development. I think that's how we got to look at this application. You know, kind of going back to the zoning of that parcel is rural industrial. Same with the land to the north and the south. You know, characterized by heavy industrial uses of the business development park. I recognize the land to the east is unzoned, but it's on the other side of I-15. I want to, you know, reiterate that in the staff report and the applicant that the proposed convenience store is a less intense use than what would be outright permitted in an RM2 zone. You know, heavy industrial uses, whether it's a freight facility or something like that, would not be before us as a board. Would be outright permitted. And like Mr. Schaefer said, we would not have the opportunity to have these conditions of approval. So I think that's important to recognize. Yeah, you know, there's no residentially or unzoned property in the immediate vicinity. The unzoned property to the east is on the other side of I-15. You know, I know that the size and shape of the parcel may preclude some potential industrial uses, but regardless of our decision tonight, the parcel is still zoned for industrial use. You know, I consider the gas station a commercial use, so is the drive-in. You know, I think it's important to recognize that the potential compatibility issues between the drive-in and the potential gas station, but noting on a broader vicinity of the development park, you know, this convenience store gas station could benefit the community and in the business park, and might not necessarily be in contrast with the surrounding landscape. You know, this is obviously an emotional application decision, you know, given the rarity, uniqueness, and community importance of the drive-in theater. You know, I do recognize the potential contrasts with the drive-in and the potential negative impacts, but also keeping in mind the proposed store very much could be in harmony with the broader area, i.e. the business park. Likely a positive impact with overall compatible harmony, and could be a positive asset in the area. So when I'm looking at this application from a broader zoning perspective, which I think that's what we need to do, I think given the current zoning designation, the adjacent land use as a whole, and the application and supplemental information that we were given, you know, I would lean towards recommending approval of this conditional use permit. However, I do think conditions of approval, you know, that were brought up by the staff are very important to outline in that decision, as well as others. I do tend to agree with, some of the landscaping and native trees and shrubs, and, maybe it's possible to work in, some taller trees, given that, we're looking at the summer months, quick growing deciduous trees, aspens, poplars, some level of assurance there on the screening. I know it's limited, what we can do with fencing, like the applicant said, with the right-of-way there. But I think any conditions that we can impose on that conditions of approval, I think are important. But that's just my initial thoughts, and I'd like to hear from other board members.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Byron, Stephen, do you have any thoughts you'd like to express?
My thoughts, Garrett and Tyler had a lot of good points that warrant concern, or warrant listening to and looking for recommendations on that. But where I guess I'm finding a little bit of heartburn with the process is the allegations that staff did not follow procedure, which is not true. I've reviewed what they've done. I've reviewed the rules. They followed procedure. They provided the exact same opportunity for public comment, which has happened twice now, which is great. I really appreciate all of that. They also afforded the exact same opportunities to the public that everybody else who comes for a conditional use gets. So I think insinuating that staff hasn't done their job, or they're pointing down some other path, is not a fair statement.
I'd like to echo that also, Stephen. I've been on the board for 28 years, and this is the process we've always followed. And they've done everything according to the zoning regulations that were adopted by the Council of Commissioners. And everything has been done fair and square. So I want to make that point too. Any other thoughts, John or Byron? John?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think any decision that is made that affects the public is a hard decision. I've been faced with a few of those in the past few years as the mayor of Walkerville, and had public hearings where almost everybody sitting out in the audience was against what we were trying to do. In this case, I really think that the fact that we can put conditions on the usage of that property is a big fact. And I agree with Tyler's comments. When you have no control over what's going to happen, it becomes an even harder possibility to look at. And so, I agree with the staff's handling of this particular use permit. I think they looked at it in that light, that we would have some control, where if commercial use went in there, or excuse me, industrial use went in there, we would have no control. And with everything that is out in that area, I think there are people looking for properties to put industrial uses out in that area. That's all I have.
Thank you. Brian?
Just a couple comments from me. The first is, I love the passion that everybody has surrounding Silverbow Drive-In. I love the ability for the people of Butte to be able to rally together and support things. It's what makes Butte Butte. What I don't think people realize, though, is how hard the planning staff works to make sure that we have consistent zoning areas around town. And this area in particular is something that zoned for industrial use. That's the place for it. I kind of see Silverbow Drive-In as the odd duck out, so I'd be in favor of Maverick.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Shannon, you've listened to all this. I don't know if you want to comment or not, even though you can't vote.
Since we're in a public forum, just so everyone's clear, this is my first meeting as a board member, and I'm not allowed to vote because I wasn't at previous hearings for this particular topic, so don't take my silence as anything other than that. But thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're probably ready for a motion if somebody would care to make it. And I imagine, in view of the comments I've heard from the board members, it would be a motion to approve the conditional use permit, subject to the conditions imposed by the staff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'd make a motion to approve conditional use permit 23-000003 with all the conditions of approval as outlined by the staff and discussed.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. We can now vote. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Mr. Chairman, I have a voting form in there that I just wrote no vote on.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry to confuse the situation.
Okay, no problem. I'll just set it there. All 5 votes are for the motion, which means that your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. Thank you. I'm now going to have a brief recess before we proceed to our next matter.
Thanks for coming up, Edward, I appreciate it.
Well, unless we get it reversed.
Well, I hope so. Center there, we're going to talk back. Geez, the warehouse, come in there, and you're only in there during the daytime and stuff, or the truck.
You know what we need to have happen? We need to have the council information. This needs to be reversed, which it can. Oh, well, they can. They have the legal right to. Plus, of course.
So the commission will vote on it in a couple weeks?
Well, I believe it's correct. I think that's right. It's an affidavit. You know.
No. No, they can't. No, it'd have to go to district court. Our decisions are reviewed by district court. not by the council. So, yeah, if it was a,
I think they'll record anyway.
yeah, they can file a petition. It'd have to be filed tomorrow, they have within 30 days to do it. They have a petition that they would have to file tomorrow would be the first day, and it'd have to be filed within 30 days. No, I'm not saying that at all. They can file a petition, has to be filed within 30 days, and day one is tomorrow.
Day one is,
Yeah.
starts counting.
Count starts tomorrow. It's up to the judge now. Okay, we'll now resume our meeting, and the next matter on our agenda is variance application 2314 by Jana Cuopola and her esteemed counsel, Frank Joseph, I understand. What's you? Yeah, you want? If there'll be a presentation, and then you can make a comment. Yeah. I just wanted you to watch the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is for variance 2314 for 815 Missoula Street. Oops. What is happening? There we go. The applicant is proposing to construct a 20-foot long by 9.5-foot wide or 192 square foot lean-to carport on the east side of their property. This request would vary from the 5-foot minimum side yard setback in the R1 or single-family zone, Butte-Silver Municipal Code. The applicant is proposing to have a 0-foot setback. Staff findings: Montana Code Annotated 76-323 and Butte-Silver Municipal Code 1754-60 grants the power to the Board of Adjustments to grant variances in instances where all review criteria are met. There are 3 review criteria that will be addressed here in the staff report and presentation. This is a view of the zone. You can see here, this is the whole area is in an R1 residential zone. This is an area of the neighborhood to the north and south and to the west. This is the applicant's house, the white one here. This is before the addition. This garage here was converted into living space. Here's a diagram of the site plan. The new addition or the garage that you had just seen would be here, and then the proposed carport is just to the east of that. Again, the new addition would be here where the garage is, and the carport here. This is a photo of where the carport would be proposed, and here is where the construction was started for the new addition. The first criteria that we'll evaluate is, will it not be contrary to public interest? The R1 zone is intended to accommodate single-family development while providing protection to property owners in the zone. The requirements of the zoning districts, such as minimum setback requirements, are designed to achieve these goals. The character of the neighborhood along Missoula Avenue is primarily one-story single-family residential with attached single-car garage. The ordinance 17.10.080 requires that there shall be a 5-foot setback for a one-story single-family home in the R1 when there is no adjacent alley. The intent behind this provision is to provide for specific, consistent look and feel by creating space for light air between adjacent buildings and originally to prevent the spread of fire. Where a variance to the side yard setback requirement be granted, it would deprive the neighborhood residing directly to the east. It would deprive the neighbor residing directly to the east the typically guaranteed separation between buildings. Further construction without uniform setbacks in an R1 neighborhood could adversely aesthetically impact the character of the neighborhood. Here's a view looking to the west from the resident's home, and this is a view looking directly to the east. The second criteria to be evaluated is unnecessary hardship. There appears to be no conditions unique to the property which would make complying with the requirements of the zone unfairly difficult. The property is a non-conforming 4,747 square foot parcel, which is slightly smaller than the 6,000 square foot minimum. It is smaller than a standard-sized lot in Butte-Silver Bow, but it is not unique compared to the other lots in the neighborhood. The position of the existing house is not constrained by unique circumstances and therefore does not constitute a hardship. The geological or topographical traits of the property do not constitute a unique hardship, as they do not prevent the property owner from exercising the same permissions of the zone provided to all property owners in the zone. Recently, the applicant converted the resident's existing attached garage into living space, and the request to build a lean-to carport with a 0-foot setback does not present a hardship due to unique property conditions, but rather a hardship created by the applicant through the conversion of the attached garage into living space. The third criteria is spirit of the zoning ordinance observed. The proposed variance request for the reduction to minimum side yard setback to 0 would not be within the spirit of the ordinance. While the conversion of the existing attached garage was not detrimental to the immediate surrounding properties, the addition of a 20 by 9.5 lean-to carport and the elimination of the side yard setback does not attempt to maintain the character of the neighborhood. Most homes in the surrounding area have similar sized lots and meet the minimum side yard setbacks. The minimum setback requirements are applied to all property owners in the R1 and may only be overridden when conditions unique to the property prohibit the same reasonable use of the property as others in the zone. Substantial justice. Would literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other tracts in the same district? Literal interpretation of the requirement of the R1 zoning district would not allow the applicants to construct a 192 square foot lean-to garage with a 0-foot setback of the inside property line. The applicant had a single-car garage that was recently converted to living space. Therefore, literal interpretation of the provision of the chapter does not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the R1 zoning district. Would approving the variance request grant the applicants any special privileges that is denied by the chapter to other land in the same zoning? There are no unique property conditions which make compliance with the regulations unfairly difficult. Building setbacks are enforced continually during concurrent building permit and zoning review process. Similar requests from many applicants have been denied in the recent past, and those applicants have adjusted their plans to meet zoning requirements. Therefore, granting this variance request would be offering special privileges to one property owner, which is denied to others in the same district. In conclusion, none of the three criteria were met. The recommendation would be to deny the variance application based on the written findings of fact as described in the staff report. The alternatives would be to approve the application based on findings of compliance with the criteria, with the option to add conditions of approval, continue public hearing on the application with specific direction to staff or the applicant to supply additional information or to address specific items. Thank you.
Thank you, Joella. Do any board members have any questions of the staff with regard to this?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one quick one. Has there been any opposition that you're aware of? Letters, vocal, anything on this?
We did have one phone call from a neighbor.
Okay, direct neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. And in opposition?
They were opposed to. They would be the neighbor directly to the east. So their concern was snow debris coming off into their yard.
Okay.
From the lean-to.
And they were aware they could come to this meeting tonight, or they might be here even?
Yes, they were made aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the staff? Okay. Mr. Joseph, can I understand you're representing Ms. Chiapala?
Yes, my name is Frank Joseph. I'm an attorney here in Butte. I'm also running for district court judge. So whenever I get gathered with people, getting back to business, and let me just say this to you folks. I serve on a couple of boards. I'm on the school board, and I'm also on the public housing authority board. It's also a volunteer position. Thank you folks for what you do. It's 8 o'clock tonight. I'm sure you're glad rather than home. Getting to the facts of the issue, the reason I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, is the zoning recommendation is to deny my client's application for a lean-to carport. She's not asking to build a garage, she's asking to build a carport. The reason she's doing so, let me ask, may I hand out?
Yes, just hand them to,
I'm sorry I only have 3, and it's not as high-tech as some of the other presentations, but hopefully we can share. I've got 4 of them. You guys can go ahead and take this one, because I basically know what I need to say. I brought some photographs, but I was happy to see that you had those of the change since my client put a driveway in. That's the photograph there. I didn't know if you guys had that one. Let me begin by saying the packets that I've handed you. Well, let me start by saying this. I won't belabor this any longer. I went to a sentence review board decision about 25 years ago for a client, and I had the statistics, and I had packages for the review board members, and I was told that, Mr. Joseph, we don't look at this stuff. It's a very quick hearing. And they also told me comparing the sentence that my client got to other sentences was the worst argument in the world. But, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have a better argument. This report says that, first of all, I'm going to take things out of order, that if my client is allowed to put this carport up, it will change the character of the neighborhood. The photographs that are in that package show the neighborhood within a block of up, down, and over from my client's house. There are 18 photographs of the house. There may be a couple that are same photographs of the same house, but at least 16 different locations within a block and a half of my client's residence show that there are minimum setbacks, 5 foot setbacks are being violated. There are sheds, there are fences, there are driveways, there are other homes next to it. And in reading these statutes, some of the pictures I showed you are 2-story homes. From what I understand, the setback has to be doubled for 2 stories to come in. And there's a couple of photographs, and I believe 835 and another 813. I'm not sure because I don't have my book in front of me. I gave it to you guys. But those are 2-story houses that are right next door to one another. So, more of this conclusion to say that my client's carport would take the character out of the neighborhood, balderdash. That's what I'll say to that. And the photographs are there. In addition to the packet, if you look on the left-hand side, my client has provided information about her medical condition. Her medical condition leads to the need for a hardship. Ladies and gentlemen, could you go back to the previous picture that showed her driveway before the change? Right there. The driveway, Mr. Silver, her name, her contractor is here. I don't have any, he told me that that's an 8% grade on her driveway. Her past driveway, she had to race up the driveway 8% to get into her garage. When she first got to the top of the driveway, the driveway flattens out. It's a very short space. She has to get into her garage. Her garage is right next door to her living room. The problem that Janet has a donated liver. She's had a liver for 20 years. Her liver is basically stapled together. The doctors told her if she falls, she faces the risk of death. She had to sign an agreement when she took this person's liver that said that she wouldn't drink alcohol. She wouldn't even drink a cup of tea because it was adverse to her condition. For 20 years, she hasn't had a cup of tea or a glass of alcohol. Well, I don't know about the alcohol, maybe you have, but I know you haven't had any tea or alcohol there. But Janet faced an 8% grade on that, and in order to get in and out of her driveway or into her garage, she had to race up, and when it was slick coming down, she often slid down. So the solution was, and the garage was tiny, it's right next to the living room, let air in and bugs in from the living room. I won't get into all those details. But she needed a different approach to her house. So the approach that she took was she put a driveway in right where the landscaping is in between the 2 houses. That driveway's there right now. All she's asking for the zoning is to allow her to put a carport in because she doesn't have a garage anymore. She needs that carport so she can keep the snow and ice off her car so she doesn't have to go out and scrape. If she slips and falls, ladies and gentlemen, it could be a fatal. Now, the requirements of the statute say there has to be some topographical or geographical type of hardship. That was a hardship. She had no choice but to change that. And the way she changed it is she yes, I do take offense to the findings in the report. I don't think they're correct, and we would ask you to consider them carefully. And my client is here. If you have any specific questions of her or her contractor, he can explain the type of carport that is going to construct. And I started and I diverged. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about the neighbor's concerns. She's concerned about storm water coming into her property. Mr. Tolger here will tell you that they're going to put rain gutters up and items to prevent any moisture from going onto the neighbor's yard. It will maintain all the moisture into Janet's yard. So with that, I will turn it over, and if you have any questions of Mr. Tolger or Janet, we're here.
Any of the board members care to hear from Janet or Mr. Twilliger? Yeah, Mr. Reese would like to hear. Mr. Twilliger, Janet, both of you, come on up. It's your chance to be at a podium, sir.
Yeah, my client got a hold of me. She was inquiring. Safety comes first. Period. Sorry. That's rule number one. She called me and inquired about her house. She asked me, what can I do with this driveway? When I've even slid on it in the winter doing small jobs for her, just little things. And I said, well, you have 3 options here. You're going to either jack your house, dig out the soil from underneath it, and then relower it to street grade. Period. That's option 1. Option 2 is we can take away the garage. She had some nasty steps that were in there anyway, so turn it into part of a dining room, dig out the soil in front, and build a garage in front up to the sidewalk. But then the garage would be on the sidewalk pretty much. That's the other option. This third option is I tried my best to comply with the neighbor next door. I even invited her into my work. I was excavating, asked to halt, got all the proper stuff, got it, put up the wall, did the grade, put up the form for the wall, and then asked the neighbor, is this suitable for you? If you need anything changed, please let me know now before the pour. If you need me to move this form, I'll move it. But please let me know before the pour. My contractors, my subcontractors were there. They heard her. No, it looks fine. It's absolutely fine. I try to be fair. I don't try to encroach or enfranchise on people's rights to their property. And I don't try to hinder or drag a net to hold people from prospering either. It's kind of like the situation the other people were in a little while ago on commercial property. So maybe they can find a happy medium. Maybe one could put up a wall, which is like a concrete, which is sound barrier proof. It's what they use on the highways, I-5, 205. And then put a fence on top of that, a privacy fence off the wall, which then people can't sit in the parking lot and watch. But anyways, I'm getting off trouble, but I'm gonna get off subject. I know. But anyways, so that's what the option was, and the lady said it was fine, so I poured the wall. I put the foundation for a lean-to in there. So that was the next step. And now she has an issue. There's no place up there. I have pictures of my own place up on 8th. I don't have 5.5 feet between my structure and a shed on a fence line next to another structure. And these homes have to be taken into consideration. They were built back when Model A's and T's were driven in the mining era. And they're smaller garage inside. In fact, mine are so useless, I walled it out. You climb it, and all I see is skyline. I can't even see where I'm dumping my car, and that's how steep mine is. It's useless. So I hope you guys consider the aspects of the safety of things. Gave plenty of room for the neighbor, didn't encroach over the fence, surveyed it as best I could, asked her, invited her straight, everything looks fine. She can run a fence line straight down beside the wall, finish off the fence, which I do believe belongs to her anyways, but she can still add a fence. And it's safer. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. They were very informative. Do any board members have any questions of Mr. Joseph or Mr. Twilliger? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody present that would care to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody present that would care to speak against the application? Hearing nobody, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Joseph's presentation has shown that there is some sort of hardship here. I see that. My concern right now is that I feel like there is a next door neighbor floating around that is not exactly on board with this, and that's a little concerning to me, especially with the length of our previous case that maybe they were here and needed to go home. But I guess that being said, I think this is okay. Like I said, I've lived up there for a number of years in college. I even declared myself mayor of Missoula Street on 1/3 of July, and no one has ever opposed me, so I probably still am. I still might be, yeah. So better watch out, Mayor Reese. I'm coming for you. But I have no problem with that either. If we are going to go to in the direction of approval, though, I would like to see some conditions in there that we do have snow containment, or stormwater containment, that kind of stuff, just because I do get a feeling that was a concern of the next door neighbor.
I agree with you on that one, Tyler. I think that is a standard anyway.
I have one question. Is the roof over the lean-to going to be a metal roof?
A metal roof or not on the carport? Can you come back to the podium, sir? Mr. Reese has a question.
I was just wondering if the roof on the carport is going to be a metal roof.
Yes, it's going to be a metal roof. It's going to be constructed of it's going to be built just like a cupola. I'm lost. I'm not a podium guy, but yeah, it's going to be built just like a cupola, in a sense. That's just what I couldn't get the. But anyway, so that's what it's going to be. And so I have one roof, the gutter's going to drain into the back. There's already a partial wall in the back, for her gate back there. So it comes out and goes back towards 8th Street. And I'm just going to put it onto that side of her property as far as any of that with snow guards, so you don't have, and you won't have much of a rake, so you're going to have probably I would say a 12.3, 12.4. So it's not going to have a lot of rake for like 12.6, 12.8 pitch. So it ain't going to.
Right, so you're not going to have snow just tumble off of that thing. All right.
And it's already on the eastern side, so shelter back
Yeah.
on the eastern side of the house. So snow mainly falls from the west.
Right. Right. No, thank you. That was just my only question.
Sir, will it have one of those snow breaks so you don't get that sudden rush? If I'm using the correct term.
Snow guard.
Okay,
That's what those are called, snow guard.
snow guard, okay,
breaks, either one.
okay. And the water would all be contained, melted water?
Won't be an enclosure one, no.
Okay,
So it won't be an enclosure. She was talking about putting up some lattice on the neighbor side, but it's not going to be enclosed.
okay. Thank you. nobody's here to speak in support of it or
Yeah.
opposition to it, so it's open for
Yeah, Mr.
board
Chairman, as far as
discussion.
we've made it tonight, sorry to interrupt you, I just want to go home. Variance number, I'm going to make a motion to approve variance 23-14 with the condition that we have stormwater containment, snow breaks, and any other necessary things that staff may find that we need to put in here to keep the neighbor from having issues, I guess.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, John.
All the new members by me. I have my own.
There are 6 votes for the motion and 1 vote against the motion, so your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. Hey, you did a good job, too.
Have a good night, guys.
The next matter on our agenda is variance application 20, according to my ballot, 24-1. Okay. And do we have a representative of the applicant present? Okay. And we have a presentation by the staff?
We do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for variance application 24-1. It's for 610 East Platinum, or the Butte Rescue Mission. The applicants are proposing construction of a facade enhancement, including a vestibule on the front primary facade of the building, which is intended to support ADA access to the building. The applicants are requesting a 5-inch front yard setback, varying from the 30-foot front yard setback required in the M2L zone. Butte-Silver Municipal Code, Section 1754-60, grants powers to the Board of Adjustment to grant variance in instances where all review criteria are met. The 3 criteria will be addressed here in the staff presentation. This is a picture of the zone. Just to the north, you have an R2 or 2-family zone. To the west, we have multifamily residential. And then where the Butte Rescue Mission is here with a star is in an M2 or heavy industrial limited. Here's an overview of the area. This right here with the red dot is where the rescue mission resides. This is a diagram given to us from the contractor. This front part here is where the vestibule will be constructed. Here's a couple photos. This one was taken from 2018. As you can see, there was originally a garage or shed on the property with a 0-foot setback. And then this is a more recent 2021 photo. And you can see from the aerial that the stairs do come out and just have, I think it was like a 32-inch setback from the the back of the sidewalk. The first criteria to be evaluated, that this will not be contrary to public interest. It is the intent of the zoning ordinance to protect the public interest by preventing building congestion on properties in an effort to promote safety, create uniformity within the different zoning districts, and prevent uses of land that may have a negative impact on surrounding property owners. In this case, the applicants are requesting to vary from the 30-foot front yard setback required in the M2L zone on a pre-existing legal non-conforming building to a previous special use permit number 1560, and then it was later amended 15996. The average of the surrounding pre-existing buildings located on the same side of the street and same block have an average setback of 5 foot 5 inches. The two buildings directly to the west have a 0-foot setback and 11-foot setback respectively. There are no structures located to the east of the Butte Rescue Mission. The proposal is not contrary to public interest. The proposed project is unlikely to disrupt the neighborhood character by contradicting the front yard setback. The building is historic in nature and previously included a shed that had a 0-foot setback from the property line. Here's a photo of what it would look like when it's completed. The vestibule would be right here. And then this back here is the existing building. And as you can see from the labeling, the ADA access is here and then to the west side of the building. The second criteria is unnecessary hardship. A pre-existing non-conforming commercial building in an industrial zone may be considered a hardship, as these circumstances would prohibit the property owner's ability to comply with the required setbacks and construct building modifications that allow individuals with disabilities access to accommodations that would be open to individuals without these disabilities. The zoning ordinance identifies this circumstance as potentially warranting a variance. The zoning ordinance recognizes pre-existing non-conforming structures and notes that these may be used for uses similar in nature and scale to the original use with approval from the Zoning Board of Adjustments, 174850. Due to the nature of this property and changes to accessibility requirements, staff considers it appropriate to consider both the existing setbacks of the structure and a commercial use on an industrial zoned lot a hardship. The third criteria, spirit of the zoning ordinance observed. The proposed variance would maintain the spirit of the ordinance. In this particular case, the property is legally non-conforming and the warehouse location prevents achieving the required front yard setbacks of 30 feet. The use of the structure for the Butte Rescue Mission operation is approved, but the applicant seeks their opportunity to modify the structure to meet an ADA accessibility requirements through the provisions of a facade enhancement that include a vestibule. The building once included an exterior structure, garage or shed, on the front northeast corner that has since been demolished. Had the applicant requested to construct the vestibule within 1 year of this demolition, the Butte-Silver Municipal Code 174850 uses within structures would allow the construction of the vestibule to be outright permitted. The request is consistent with the setbacks of other buildings on the block and would maintain the established development pattern customary of historic buildings in the area and would maintain consistency of the neighborhood character. Substantial justice. Would literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter deprive the applicants of rights commonly enjoyed by other tracts in the same district? It must be noted that the decision to allow the Butte Rescue Mission's commercial use within an industrial zoning district has already been made with the approval of special use application number 15680, Butte-Silver Municipal Code section 174850 states repurposing an existing non-conforming building for a use equally or less impactful than the original use is allowed within approval from the Zoning Board of Adjustments. Would approving the variance request grant the applicants any special privilege that is denied by this chapter to other land in the same zoning district? There are unique conditions related to the property which makes compliance with the regulations unfairly difficult. Given the building is a pre-existing legally non-conforming structure as it currently does not meet the front yard setback requirements of the M2L zone, and other properties in the area do not meet the setback requirements of the M2L zone. Granting this variance would not be offering special privileges to one property owner denied to others in the same district. In conclusion, and our recommendations, 3 of the 3 criteria have been met. The recommendation would be to approve the variance application based on written findings of fact as described in the staff report. The alternative would be to deny the application based on findings of compliance with the criteria, with the option to add conditions of approval, or continue public hearing on the application with specific direction to staff or the applicant to supply additional information or to address specific items. Thank you.
Thank you, Joella. Do any board members have any questions of the staff? I don't. Okay, thank you. Is anybody present who would care to speak in support of this application? Or I forgot, you do have the chance of offering some comments. I guess it's been a long meeting and we all want to go home.
It's pretty straightforward. We just want to make the front of it ADA compliant, and so it's not going to interrupt the flow of the sidewalk. All the other buildings on that street are set at that same setback, so it would enhance the front of the building. So I can also answer any questions with that as well.
Any questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Markovich, do you have anything you want to add?
Greetings, Mr. Chairman, board members. Thanks for your service and hearing our variance request tonight. I can answer any questions you have. As you can see, very straightforward. We take an existing building that sits an existing set of stairs. We try to turn it into an ADA compliant entrance to the building, dress up the front of the building in the process. It's a good improvement on the building. If there's any questions on construction or methods or means, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'm sure everyone's anxious to get out of here. I'll keep my comments brief.
Any questions of the board members? Doesn't appear to be anybody. Thank you for coming tonight. Now I'll ask if anybody present would care to speak in support of the application. Hearing nobody. Does anybody present care to speak against the application? Again, I hear nobody, and I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this seems pretty straightforward, as Mr. Markovich said. The way I'm looking at it, it's more of a timing issue. If it was within the year, we're not even here tonight. We missed that magical window, so we're here tonight. Anytime we can get a building to improve ADA access, I don't see any reason we wouldn't do that, unless I'm sure there's something, but not that I can think of at this hour. I just want to say the previous case tonight, or the first case tonight, reminded me a lot of the years we spent trying to find the homeless shelter a place that they could go without everyone saying, not in my yard. So a lot of these things are very similar, unfortunately, but we found a nice place for them to be. I don't think we really have any opposition to them being there, and they've got a really nice place there, and they're making it nicer, more accessible, and I see no reason we're not going to support that. I'm not going to support that. I'm not talking about anything else.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would agree. I think this is as straightforward as it gets. It's necessary and should be supported.
Okay. I support it also.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve variance 24-1.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded, and we can now vote. Thank you. All 7 votes are for the motion, it's unanimous. So your application has been approved, and you'll be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. And is there any further business?
No, let's
Nope.
adjourn.
Okay, sounds good. Motion to adjourn. I'll just go ahead and
Second
adjourn
for
it.
report.